It's a warm, sultry morning here in Hobart, and the Derwent River forging a magnificent backdrop to our studio in the Rolex Hobart Race Village. A rather barren sight around the docks at the moment, but that will be dramatically transformed over the next couple of days. And this location, that's exactly below there where the Line Honours winner will dock after crossing the finishing line here in Hobart. So it's a splendid scene. The temperature's expected to climb to nearly 30 degrees today, and the leaders are now well into Bass Strait with Andrew Comanche leading the way, and alongside me is the voice of the Rolex Sydney Hobart, Peter Shipway. Pete, is the record still on?
Well, good morning, Gordon. It certainly is. It's going to be tight, and I just think she will miss out. She's got 287 miles to go, and she's got to cover that in just over 13 hours. So it's a big average speed to maintain all the way to the finish. And I think the river could determine it. She could get to Tasman in good shape, but she's got to get across the bay tonight and up the river. So she's got to maintain that average, which will be very difficult to do. But, boy, she's giving it a good shot. At the moment, the northerly's freshening across Bass Strait, and they're having a rollicking ride at the moment. She's doing 23 plus knots. And she's only 11 miles ahead of Law Connect. When I say only 11, sounds like a long distance, but considering the speed these boats are going, that's probably only half an hour in sailing time. So one little breakdown or misadventure aboard Comanche, then Law Connect could certainly gobble her up. But at the moment, it's Andrew Comanche showing the way, and at the moment, I would think she's going to be close to the record, but probably just won't get there.
So they would have to finish her record back in 2017. They finished just after 10 o'clock in the evening. So that's the deadline for them. But looking at the tracker, the famous Rolex Sydney Hobart tracker from the Cruising Yacht Club of Australia, what can you tell us from there?
Well, what we can see is that the four Maxis, as expected, have jumped out to a pretty good lead over the rest of the fleet because they're so big, these 100-footers. And we're just having a look at the tracker now as I bring it up here. And the leaders you'll see here when I expand it out, stick with me, they are the orange boat you can see there on the tracker. That's LDV Comanche when she set the record. That's where she was when she set the record in 2016.
1 day, 9 hours and
15 minutes. 15 minutes, that's right, yeah. And I'll just straighten the screen up a little bit. And the red sail you can see there, that is Andrew Comanche right at the moment. So she's not quite down to Flinders Island. She's almost across Bass Strait. So that's Andrew Comanche there. And then the two boats just directly astern of her are Law Connect and Hamilton Island Wild Oats. And I think inshore, that may be... No, sorry, that's Hamilton Island Wild Oats inshore. That's the green line you can see is the actual track that those boats have taken overnight. So it's very close, but they're all well east of the rum line. You can see that's the blue line, the straight line between Sydney and Tasman Island. They've all worked themselves well to the east. Now what that means is the breeze has been lifting them, probably gone from the northeast into the north, perhaps into the northwest. They'll go a little bit out further and then jibe to come back and make their approach to Tasmania.
I understand it was a very emotional farewell for Andrew Comanche before they departed the dock at Woolwich yesterday with the crew all wearing black armbands, Peter.
Yes, in memory of Ian Murray, the sailing master aboard Andrew Comanche's mother, who passed away 3 days ago. And she was a great supporter, obviously, of Ian and his wonderful career. So as a mark of respect to June Murray, the boys all wore black armbands. And also another friend of John Winning's, he was a skydiver that goes diving in those suits. He passed away mid-year. Matt Munting was his name, and he was very well known on the world scene, and great support from John Herman Winning Jr., so a big loss there as well.
Well, they're certainly having an armchair ride, and John Winning Sr. is also on board. I'm sure he's enjoying it. I know he likes to wake up in his own bed. But Peter, I've got to say it was chaotic on Sydney Harbour yesterday for the start. You were there with Mark Beretta describing graphically the action, and it was almost as though we ran out of enough harbour for those big 100-footers. I know John Winning says it's a bit like trying to drive a semi-trail around a go-kart track on Sydney Harbour, but it really was quite amazing.
Well, it was. And look, I've competed in many of the races, and then I've watched many of the races and commentated on many of the races. I've never really seen a start like it. These 4 maxis going at each other, hammer and tong, and they all came together at the turning mark, the inner turning mark in the harbour, and it was still on then. Andrew Comanche hit the mark. They had to do penalty turns, but boy, there was some action. And those boats were being tossed around like toys in a bath, really. And it was, well, not lucky, but a good seamanship, I guess, that there were no serious collisions. But boy, it was exciting and thrilling to watch for the spectators on the harbour, and certainly for people on the television. That's no doubt about that.
Well, it certainly looked as though we were going to have some carnage, particularly with those maxis, the 100-footers involved. There are 4 of them. Remember, Wild Oats 11 has won this race on Lion Honours on 9 occasions, Comanche 3 times. There's a great rivalry between Comanche and Wild Oats 11, and it's going to go all the way to Hobart. But courtesy of the 7 Network now, let's recap on those amazing scenes at the start with Peter Shipway and Mark Barretta.
2022 Rolex Sydney Hobart. The Great Race South is on. And a great view there of the 4 start lines now. Those 4 waves underway and heading towards Sydney Heads before they make that big right turn out.
Okay, here's the battle. The majority of the fleet on starboard.
These guys.
Okay, here we're seeing a tangle up here of these maxis. Boy, this is close here.
Protest, get a flag on there. That's fucking bullshit.
That was-
Press it.
Okay, we already heard a protest being yelled by Andrew Comanche. They didn't get any room to tack.
Incredible drama already in this race.
The drama in the voices of the crew, especially on Andrew Comanche. She's coming back on port. She's going to have to tack again. They've got clobbered by going in there, those bigger boats. Law Connect coming across on port. Now, it'll be interesting to see if they fly a protest flag. Here comes Law Connect. She's bouncing off the spectators in the exclusion zone. She's coming across on port tack with no rights here. She's going to take a stern. She's across Whisper. Oh, this is close.
We're going to have a water call here. Okay. And I'm going to say you tag, and then we
It's about as close as you want to take a couple of maxis.
But it'll be best to...
So what we're seeing here is Wild Oats, Hamilton Island Wild Oats trying to hold Blackjack down there.
I agree. Stand by attack.
Calling now.
Now these big wide boats, the breeze northeast about 15 knots.
Mark Richards probably as calm as he's ever been.
Jib on.
Not now, jib on, he wants some jib on. But when Law Connect tacks, he'll be on
Stand by attack. We're in good shape here.
Okay, good shape, says Mark Richards. They're clear ahead. They're clear ahead of Law
Here we
Connect.
go, guys. Helms down, tacking down over. Here we go.
They're just going to get very light as they approach these turning marks. They get the influence of North Head. So it's going to be quite tricky now until they get to the inner turning mark. So they're the 4 maxis. They'll probably
go, mate.
1, 2, 3 and 4. The order at the moment,
cover up,
possibly
cover up, please.
Hamilton Island Wild Oats.
Please.
Now here's a close go. Andrew has no rights here.
You're done.
She's on port tack. Wind coming from the left-hand side. She'll have to duck.
Okay, I've got it. Nettie's got it. I've got it.
He's got it. Means he can see the other boat. He knows how close he can go, Herman Winnie. Oh, here's a close go. Blackjack is absolutely threading the needle between Law Connect and Hamilton Island Wild Oats. Wow, Mark Bradley. Wow, terrific job. Wow, that was nervous stuff. So the 4 are in the mix.
Cover down, please.
Right in the mix. Okay, stand by to tax the call from
Stand
Mark
by,
Richards.
helms
Tack
down.
on starboard.
Here we
2
go.
short tacks. 1 and then 2. So they've all extracted themselves very well, these maxis, to get up to the first 4 places. Wild Oats, a short little tack, 2 boat lengths.
Stand by attack.
11 minutes, just on
You're
12
right.
minutes to the turning mark. You're right.
Here we go.
Great job, Wild Oats.
Up a pretty favourable shift. We've just seen him turn the distance mark right now. Great job by Wild Oats and Mark Richards, but man, that was some of the closest crossing I think I've ever seen in the race so far.
Thanks, Jimmy.
Well,
Yeah, we're doing the turn.
I think
Got to do turn. I think we hit.
Yeah, they did hit the mark.
Where can I do it?
So Andrew
I'm not having
Comanche.
a protest. You ready?
Okay, there's plenty of drama here. Let's look at this again.
I
Andrew
agree.
Comanche
Just look at
has the starboard tack
You
rights.
on the other helm. You on the other helm.
Okay,
You
let's
ready
see.
to turn? Ready to turn?
Yeah, the turning mark's gone down their side. Though.
Protesting!
Oh, it's all happening. It is all happening. And there's Murray Jones. They're clear. Wild Oats is on her way. And that's good. They can go to Hobart, as I said, with a clear conscience. Boy, that was close, as Jimmy said. These 4 maxes have thrown the boats round like skiffs.
So that's 2 spins they need to do, and they'll clear their penalty, and they go on in the race.
Trip to Hobart. But what Mark Richards was saying to Murray Jones, have we infringed? Murray thought they might have. Mark said no. Will they do penalty turns? Who knows? And here's Law Connect. She will lead at the second turning mark. She has really driven hard in this breeze now, which is freshening outside the heads. You can see the white caps. Law Connect, there's the turning mark. Turning mark, Zulu. Now, will Hamilton Island Wild Oats do some penalty turns? That's the question.
Hey, let's go.
I think Murray Jones, the tactician, is saying maybe we did infringe and perhaps we should do the penalty turns. They thought they may have infringed in the harbour. Murray Jones, the cool-headed tactician from New Zealand, has said to Mark Richards, maybe we did and we should do our penalty turns. So they're doing the penalty turns. Mark Richards wasn't in agreement. He said, no, I think we're okay, but they're not taking any risks. And this is the smart thing to do. So they're on their way with a clear head now. Hamilton Island Wild Oats now getting their reaching sail unfurled after doing the penalty turn. A little bit too small to get overall honours, but Adrian Cahalan aboard, one of our most celebrated female skippers, as we watch the bow of Comanche go down and point towards Hobart.
All right, let's go down to the water with Jimmy Spittle.
Yeah, hey guys, we're just over here off North Head Super Maxis, choosing to do penalties. I think that was a wise decision. It's a long race. Let's do our turns and then let's get on with it. So I think that was a very wise decision, and as was with Andu Comanche.
But yes, the battle is really for the handicap honours, the Tattersall Cup, and that's the real prize. And I think the weather, the way it is, looks as though the 60 or 50 footers, TP 52 footers, could figure highly in that race. And there's Andu Comanche. She's starting to wind up now. She's going a little bit to seaward of the fleet, which is a better speed for her. But as the day goes on, the breeze will get fresher, and certainly will be an interesting battle for handicap honours. Will they break the record? It's going to be very close, I think. They've got to be there by 10:15 tomorrow night. And the weather modelling says at the moment that Andu Comanche is due at 11 o'clock.
Well, you've got to say, Peter, you don't get a more exciting, exacting, tacking duel going from the start line at Nielsen Park for those maxis. But also, let's not forget those smaller boats who were interspersed and also proving difficult.
Well, it was dramatic, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It really was, and everyone was absolutely gung-ho, all powered up, and as I said in the commentary, you can't win the race in the harbour, but you can lose it. And we just saw what happened there, boats doing penalty turn, protests being yelled, and it was certainly a close cross between Law Connect and Blackjack.
Well, let's have a look at the cross here. We'll take you on board Law Connect with right-of-way on starboard tack. Wild Oats 11 off to the right, Hamilton Island Wild Oats 11, and here comes Blackjack into the fray, Peter Shipway.
Yes, this is the action looking along the leeward side of Law Connect. You can see Blackjack in the distance approaching shortly, and as you say, Hamilton Island Wild Oats up on the air of Law Connect. Tony Mutter would be at the helm of Law Connect, an outstanding New Zealand yachtsman, 6 times round the world for 2 victories, and Chris Nicholson, his tactician, the Australian dual Olympian and Yachtsman of the Year. But let's have a listen now what happens aboard Law Connect as Blackjack threads the needle, as I said yesterday.
And the key point here is, does Law Connect have to change course here to duck under?
Correct. Here they come. There's Blackjack going down between the 2 yachts. Law Connect, he's the main sheet. Well, they just called protest. They're flying the red flag. They were on starboard. They had all the rights for right of way. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out when the boats get to Hobart.
Yes, well, what about the handicap situation? You mentioned it there with the TP52s. There are some celebrated entries and the overseas influences certainly back there in a big way this year.
Yes, at the moment, it's a long way to go, let's say that. Don't forget that. The smaller boats and the handicap favourites are not even halfway. So it's a bit early to really gauge, but, you know, the handicap comes up on the computer. At the moment, Celestial from New South Wales, Sam Haynes is leading very narrowly from Guaylo, another boat from New South Wales at TP52. Then the TP52s from overseas, Caro and Warrior 1 are third and fourth. So they're all there or thereabouts, but it's all very close at the moment. Of course, Celestial, if you remember, was provisionally first last year when she finished here in the Derwent River just behind us, and she was penalised for an infringement during the race when she didn't answer her radio. And she was relegated to second place behind Ichiban. But at the moment, Sam Haynes and his very talented crew are putting in a mighty effort at the moment. But it's all the TP52s in the first four spots. But interestingly, and I'm sure for our Hobart listeners, Alive, the yacht from Hobart that won in 2018, she's in fifth spot. She's been very close all the way through, so she's in pretty good shape to do very well on handicap.
Well, just repeating, 9 boats started in 1945 when the race was won by Rani.
Yep.
109 started yesterday, and in that 109 are 20 two-handed entries. And looking at one of those two-handed entries, Crux, they made a miscalculation yesterday, Peter. Take us through it.
A very serious miscalculation. Well, we'll hear some voice over and film footage from the Crux in a moment, but what happens is, because there's so many yachts in this race, they have 4 separate starting lines in the harbour to try and make it as even as they can for the yachts to get out the harbour. And then once they get to the heads, there's different turning marks that equalise the distance between the starting lines. So there's 2 inner turning marks and 2 outer turning marks. So you've got to get a combination, whether you go to the closest in and the furthest out, or furthest in and closest out. You've got to read your instructions very clearly. But let's see what happened to our poor friends on Crux.
We made a bit of a rookie mistake at the start there. Great starts, and we're doing really well, and thought we're doing actually very well. We've actually worked out though that although we're Division 5, which is normally line 4, we actually were line 3. So we technically missed our mark coming outside the heads. So we had to turn around and head back to do our mark, get around the mark. It's unfortunate because it doesn't even lost a bit of time, about an hour and a half unfortunately. But we've done the right course, we're still in the race, so that's the main thing. Lesson learned that double check, triple check the paperwork. Just because you won the summer boats doesn't necessarily mean you're on the last line.
Yes, well, two-handed skippers. That was Peter Grayson, and his co-skipper is Carlos Aidos from the Manly Yacht Club. And I guess you've got to put a setback like that behind you, Peter. You can't dwell on it, can you? He seemed to be very nonchalant, and let's get on with the business.
Well, that's right. I mean, the worst thing would have been to come to Hobart and get disqualified because he went round the wrong marks. They realised their mistake. They went back, cost them an hour and a half. At least they can come now to Hobart with a clear conscience and know they've sailed the proper course.
Well, 17 two-handed boats entered last year. 7 retired. This year we've had 20 two-handed. Who's the front runner to your mind?
Well, they're all going at the moment, which is good. The conditions are very suitable. Obviously, nice northeasterly breezes, but it'll get stronger during the day, and it'll be a test for not only the two-handers, but the fully crewed boats. I'd like Mistral to win the two-handed division, which is a very, very good boat, skippered by Rupert Henry and his crew, Greg O'Shea. And also this year, for the first time ever, Gordon, that the two-handers are integrated in the fully crewed fleet, and they are eligible for the overall Tattersalls Cup, which is the prize for the handicap winner. And
look, I think the real fairy tale in the two-handed class is Currawong, the 30-footer. It's being sailed by a 71-year-old pensioner, Kathy Veal, with Bridget Canham. And, yeah, they've got a few boats behind them at the moment. So that's an amazing effort by them. I think 134 years experience between them, life experience, Peter. And it's going to be a fairly slow race for them to Hobart.
It is. At the moment, they're 105th on line honours. I've got 2 boats behind them. They've got 504 miles to go, and they're 30 miles east of Bateman's Bay on the far New South Wales south coast. But just as we wind up here, Gordon, I'll just quickly go back to the line on the situation, which was updated about 10 minutes ago. Andrew Comanche leading on with 282 miles to go. She's 12 miles ahead of Law Connect in second place. Hamilton Island Wild Oats third. She's another 5 miles behind, and then 2 miles to Blackjack. So the top 4 maxis, as expected, 1, 2, 3 and 4, with Andrew Comanche well in control.
We'll come back to that tracker for a final wrap, but we're now going to take you to the village green here, the Race Village green here for Rolex in Hobart, and a man who's actually done the race himself, Peter Gee. Peter, you were at the coalface last year with Peter Shipway here in the harbour. Very different scene last year, and there was no race, of course, in 2019. But what about the expectations in Hobart this time?
Good morning, Gordon and Peter, and to all our viewers. I'm feeling a bit privileged to be on my own in the Rolex Race Village at the moment on the beautiful village green, but don't expect it to stay this way for long. The retail outlets and the food and drink purveyors are putting the final touches on their stalls, and the beanbag man has arrived, and I think this will be the place to be for the best part of the week to come, on the beanbags here in front of the big screen, watching our coverage and soaking up all the atmosphere. As you've indicated, Gordon, a change this year, almost back to normal. We're not post-COVID, of course, but the restrictions have been released last year. The skippers, when they came here to Kings Pier, before they could allow their crews on board, had to give them all rat tests. Do you remember that? Certainly people in Tasmania were very hesitant about coming down here to the docks last year, because we had a moat and we put it up during the lockdown and didn't let any mainlanders in. But now those restrictions have been eased, and Tasmanians much more relaxed. They didn't really want to come down and watch it live last year. They were happy to watch our coverage on TV and on their streaming devices. But this year they're going to want to be involved. And you know, in the early hours of tomorrow morning, when we expect the leading Super Maxi to come across the line, Andrew Comanche, should it stay that way this afternoon, there'll be hundreds down here. We're expecting, I think it's a record overnight high or low of 22 degrees. That is really unheard of for Tasmania. So it'll be shirt sleeves all the way through the first couple of days of this Sydney Hobart, and over on the Salamanca side of Sullivan's Cove, we've got the taste of summer getting into full swing, all the food and drink there, lots of stalls. There'll be hundreds down here, and they'll be here too to welcome in all the winners as they come in over the next 3 or 4 days.
You've covered it brilliantly, Pete, but you haven't told us about Tasmania's chances in the big race this year.
Gordon, we've got 6 local yachts in the race, and Alive is in the top 10. As Peter Shipway mentioned, a previous winner, Philip Turner's boat is going to be right there from the Derwent Sailing Squadron. Got an international crew on board, and Ed Saltus, perhaps more local yachtsman on his Royal Yacht Club entry, Midnight Rambler, always a favourite with the locals here. And we've got 2 boats in the two-handers. The 2 Krakens will be trying to get some bragging rights there. And we also claim the 2 Langman boats. You know,
of course you do.
Moneypenny is going to be right up there overall, and yeah, well, I mean, Sean Langman has got a great connection now down there in the Channel south of Hobart with the Commandy Hotel, and his son Peter has been put on board Maluka, a 1932 gaff-rigged 9-metre beauty. And, you know, it's sort of been touted as a possibility to get up in the overall honours as well, a Division 4 boat. So we're going to say we've got 8 Tasmanian entries this year.
So between you, Peter Gee, Peter Shipway and myself, we'll be covering everything here from the Rolex Hobart Race Village. We'll have our daily reports at 9 a.m, that's Eastern Daylight Time, and also at 4 o'clock in the afternoon on each day, taking us right through to the new year. And also, if something happens, Peter Shipway, we will be there. So on the digital channels and also the Yacht Tracker, it's all covered here by the Cruising Yacht Club of Australia.
Yes, the tracker and the website gives terrific information. Update every 10 minutes so everyone can go and see really what is happening.
Let's have
live.
one last look at the tracker before we sign off then. And we see that Andu Comanche, the race favourite for Lion Honours.
This is the standings I've got up here now, Gordon, where you can see at the top the yacht name, the position in latitude and longitude, its position 158 miles south of Gabo, DTG, distance to go, SOG, speed over the ground, COG, course over the ground, and then the estimated finishing time.
So DTG is, what, 282
miles to go.
nautical miles still for Andrew Comanche.
Yes.
Given a freshening breeze, is the race record still on?
I'm a betting man, which I'm not. I'll say no. Close, but no.
So we could have a finish in the early hours of tomorrow morning. That's probably the favoured way, but don't write off the race record. That's my message from long experience here in Hobart. And remember that Andrew Comanche set that race record in 2017, although finishing 26 minutes behind Wild Oats 11, who was first across the line, but then suffered a time penalty after an incident in the harbour at the start. So anything's possible, Peter Shipway.
The forecast is for very brisk northerlies down the Tasmanian coast. Just very quickly, the Bureau of Meteorology has a strong wind warning out for east of Flinders Island, a strong wind warning tomorrow, north to northeasterly winds gusting to 30 to 35 knots. So, boy, it's going to be quick.
Well, that winds up our coverage here from the Rolex Race Village here in Hobart. Exciting times ahead, and as I say, behind us, the Lion Honours winner will be docking there. You'll see all of the celebrations right here on the CYC's digital channels. So join us for our next report at 4 o'clock Eastern Daylight Time this afternoon.